Let me tell you how you can enter the African market as an investor. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Kanessa. I'm a seasoned investor in the continent, and it's actually something that started quite impulsively, but now I kind of mastered the game, I would say, and I'm here to encourage you, especially the diaspora, to explore the opportunities. So I am recording this on my camera in case it turns into a whole podcast, because the continent is quite complex. There's no one size fits all. We are dealing here with 54 countries, okay? It's one big continent, and the map actually doesn't do justice to how big and diverse the continent is. Let me start with the good things. There are many cultures, languages, backgrounds, the food, atmosphere, everything about Africa is amazing. From one side, I would say that the narrative about Africa is completely false, because Africa is actually thriving majorly. There are so many opportunities, it's insane. I don't even know where to start. But on the other hand, we're still dealing with things like corruption or, anything politic related that is just not stable and actually far from stable. Doesn't mean you can't do it. There are many options and there are many ways. I could make a whole documentary on this, but let me just jump to what I did, how I managed to navigate. Disclaimer, I'm not a super pro. I mean, I've been doing this for 3 years, but I learned a lot, and it changed me, but also the whole perspective on how to do business in Africa. First, you have to protect yourself. So how I protected myself is, let's say if I want to invest in a country in Kenya or Zimbabwe or whatever country it is, I make sure that the holding company, meaning the company that buys or invests in Kenya, let's say, is outside of Kenya. And the reason why you do this is because you want to protect yourself. Governments and the whole political system is not always stable in certain countries, and also they have quite some power, I should say. So if you want to protect yourself, you make sure that the holding company is outside that country. So for example, if you want to invest in Kenya, you can have a company in Ghana that buys the property or the investment in Kenya. Or my personal favorite is Mauritius. Mauritius is the most stable, but I understand from the cultural and connection perspective, especially for diaspora, that you want to do it on mainland Africa. So choose the countries that are the most stable, start a company, that company acquires the actual investment, in this case, Kenya. The reason why you want to do this is to protect yourself. I already said that, but what is the protection exactly? So if you have a foreign company owning an investment, it's quite hard for the local government to seize that. And I know this is kind of a gray area to discuss. Nobody in Africa openly discusses this, but it is a very important one for the investor. I'm not trying to attack any government here, but this is how local entrepreneurs generally protect themselves and deal with the situation. Africa is improving, they're quite tackling a lot of the problems that I'm mentioning, but if it's not fully covered and you're not fully protected, make sure to protect yourself through structures in this case. And I just mentioned it already, Mauritius is a very stable one, is one of the hubs, financial hubs for Africa. And you can also find the right professionals there because they're simply experienced throughout the continent. But also Zanzibar, Rwanda, and Seychelles are quite high in the ranking when it comes to building structures inside the continent. Besides making it harder for the government to seize your investment, there's also a law that protects you called IPPA, which is quite important in Africa. This law, I'm not gonna go into detail, you can Google it if you want, IPPA Africa or IPPA Mauritius or wherever you are, you can Google it. But this law is an international law, in that sense, international within Africa, law that protects you from your property or your investment being seized. Very, very important in Africa. Then you have to think about repatriation, something you don't have to take into consideration when you invest in the West, for example. Repatriation of funds can be a nightmare in the continent. There are countries that are an absolute no-go in terms of repatriation. I'm not going to mention them because I don't want to put them in a bad daylight, because every country in Africa is actually trying to improve, and the whole situation might be different a year from from now. So some countries are really blacklisted in terms of repatriation, meaning that the money that you make inside that country, you will never be able to get it out and enjoy it outside that specific country. So their currency, let's say you make money in that country with their currency, you will never be able to take that out because their currency simply has no value outside that country, and they have no liquidity in the sense of there's no dollar, no hard currency to get it out of that country. I hope I'm making sense here because, like I said, I don't want to mention the countries or the name of the currency because simply that is bad PR, and I am not here to do any bad PR for any country. Just trying to warn you. So my initial advice would be to choose the countries where you can easily repatriate. On paper, you can, but in reality, it's quite hard. But there are structures possible. I already mentioned Mauritius. So let's say you start a company in Mauritius and that company buys a company in Zimbabwe. You can easily do that actually. So the owner of that investment in Zimbabwe is that your company in Mauritius in this case. So what you could do is, let's say you have the company, you own the company in Zimbabwe. It's an agricultural company. You invested, let's say, in a corn plantation. Super random, I know. But you sell the corn to someone outside Zimbabwe. You sell it to, let's say, Morocco, or even in the West, you sell it to someone in Germany. Make sure that that person will pay you in a currency that has value, meaning dollar, euro. It has way more value. And you can get that transferred to your company account or bank account in Mauritius. Because Mauritius, the whole repatriation thing is non-existing. It's no problem there. So you can get your funds wherever you are in the world. You can get your dollars, euros out, and you can use it as you wish, which can be hard in other parts of Africa. Depending on the amount that we're talking about, there are other ways as well. The lower the amount, the better the options. The higher the amount, the harder this task gets. I will leave it at this for now because I think it's already quite complex. Next time, I would like to talk about the cultural aspects and the mentality, how you deal with Africans, you know, how promises work, how business deals work, and how you need a lot of patience to thrive on this market. But once you thrive, you're in and you will be settled. You and the next generation will be settled for life. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you would like me to make more of explanation videos on how to do business in Africa. If you have questions about this specific topic, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer them. But for now, I'd like to thank you again, and I will see you next time.